For this question, we're joined by our guests today from Mogadishu, Xassan Sh, head of the Peace and Development Party, an independent Somali political party. From Oxford, David Anderson, Professor of African Politics at the University of Oxford and Fellow at St Cross College. And from London, George Saitoti, Kenyan Minister for Internal Security. Gentlemen, welcome to you all. Xassan Sh, we'll start with you in Mogadishu. Is today's conference just another expensive waste of time? Why should it succeed where 20-odd previous conferences on Somalia have failed?
Yeah, I think, thank you very much, gentlemen, and I greet my friends within the program. I think the London conference is a sort of double sword. It has a negative aspects, it has positive aspects. It all depends on the amount of information we have, and we make our judgment on the information we have. It's very good because it brings the attention of the world back to Somalia, and it's very good. It's making a sort of, it's a space for coordination among the international community, which has not been so in the past couple of years. So it has that positive aspects. But when we go back since the Prime Minister of UK has announced at that conference, there have been a number of documents that were circulating over and over, and some of them were not very good, stating that the Somali sovereignty and Somali state will be downgraded to authority, and whereby and some of them even go far and said some international or African ex-presidents will lead Somalia. So in this is a very, very serious question among the Somalis, and after 20 years of conflict, you know how sensitive the Somali society is. So with all this, now puts the London conference in a very difficult, and here in Somalia, people are very skeptical about the outcome, which is not very clear, which we don't know. But for us, we welcome on the focusing back the attention of the international community to Somalia and coordinating the diverse and opposing views and positions of the international community on Somalia for the past 2 decades. So I think it has these two aspects. It all depends. But here back in Mogadishu, in Somalia, people are very skeptical because of the history of the international community's position. And it is the 17th or 16th of conference that has been organized outside Somalia, and not the initiative come from Somalia and inside Somalia. So what difference will it add? That's a very legitimate question, and I think a lot is missing on this conference.
All right. David Anderson in Oxford. Are Somalis right to be skeptical about this conference? Is it, as one commentator put it today, just an irrelevant talking shop?
Well, you can understand why after 20 years people in Mogadishu may feel somewhat exasperated by the West now declaring that they're going to solve Somali's problems. I think that's the wrong way to look at it, though. I think we have to understand that this initiative was born or began to be born about 2 years ago when Al-Shabaab launched attacks in Kampala. And I think that event awakened the whole region and the heads of governments in the region to the fact they had a problem that they really needed to deal with. Now, Britain's come forward and given it some focus and some shape, but I think the real difference here is that the members of IGAD, the regional group in East Africa, are now more committed than they've ever been to seeing some kind of solution. And if they can have the courage to empower Somali's own people to really be involved in the process, it might have a chance of success. But it's that issue that Somalis, I think, are skeptical about. Are they going to get the chance and the opportunity to really take a lead in defining their own future?
Let's put the points you raised there, and one that Xassan Sh raised a few moments ago to Minister Saitoti in London. Somalia's neighbours, the countries of East Africa, more committed than ever to solving the problems of Somalia, but countries like Britain, Italy, Uganda, Ethiopia and Kenya, as Xassan Sh was saying, want to downgrade Somalia's sovereignty under the pretext that Somalia can't form a government until it's stable.
Well, thank you very much indeed. Kenya does welcome this London International Conference on Somalia. And this is because this is the first time for over 20 years since Somali got into the difficulty it is currently experiencing, that such an important conference has been held. We do see this conference here as an important window of opportunity to explore ways in which at least stability can be brought to Somalia. It should also be recognized that over the last 20 years, Somalia has gone through a number of problems. There have been no institutions which are functional in the state of Somalia. And it is important that at this particular time, we are meeting at a time when the United Nations Security Council has already approved, the security measure to strengthen the current TFG government. We believe that this opportunity has not been there. It is an opportunity the Somali people will use it to be able to reclaim their own sovereignty. We don't believe at all that this conference is going to be in any way to degrade the sovereignty of Somalia. On the contrary, it offers the opportunity for Somalia to be able to define for themselves how they would want the future of Somalia to be, and much more important, to bring the rule of law, to define the way forward for starting democracy, for the betterment of the people of Somalia.
So, Minister, you believe that this conference will result in something concrete, not just another well-meaning communique, drafts of which were drawn up and leaked to the media last week?
I would like to say that this is the first time that such a high-ranking conference has actually been held on Somalia. For a very long time, the international community has kind of treated the crisis in Somalia very lightly. But I find myself that what the British Prime Minister has done is to try to offer an opportunity for the world to see ways in which Somalia's crisis can be solved. We have not seen this attempt for a long time, because the last time that we saw a very big, strong intervention in Somalia was when the United States of America went there and left out. And for many years, Somalia was never counted as a serious matter by the international community. For us in Kenya, let me say this. We have, over a period of time, received a lot of Somali refugees. And currently we host the largest refugee camp in the world. Over 600,000 Somali refugees live in Kenya. And we hope that this conference will open a way in which at least there will be calm, there will be tranquility, and the people of Somalia have the opportunity to go back and build Somalia.
David Anderson, I could see you shaking your head as the Minister was speaking there.
Yes,
yes, please, carry on.
I think there are some issues here, I think, that really need to be foregrounded. I think the Minister is quite correct to emphasise the Somali refugee problem in Kenya has been a major driver towards the current initiative. The 2.4 million Somalis that are in Kenya, over 500,000 of them refugees, nearly 500,000 living in one refugee camp near the border at Dadaab. This has been a constant problem for the Kenyan government, and the Minister's quite right to raise this as an important issue. But looking beyond that, I wonder what Kenya really sees its future role as being in southern Somalia. The Kenyan army has gone in on the 16th of October in an invasion. It's hoping to push al-Shabaab out of the Jubaland area. It's hoping to take the port of Kismayo. But what will Kenya then do? What is the plan? What is the exit strategy?
Well, let's ask the Minister. Xassan Sh, Mahmoud, I'll get back to you in just a moment. But what happens when the African Union's mandate ends in August, Minister? What about Kenyan troops, though? I know you can't answer for Ethiopian troops, but are we likely to see Kenyan troops on the ground in Somalia long term?
Well, first of all, I would like to make it clear one thing. Kenya does not have any ambition at all for Somalia. What actually prompted the Kenyan government to send the troops into Somalia was the threat that our own country faced from a security point of view, with al-Shabaab crossing the border into Kenya and attacking our security forces, also getting involved in the kidnapping of the tourists, including even some of our security officials. We took the view that Kenya has to defend his own security, the stabilization, and also our own economy. Now, Kenya in movement and being in Somalia is purely temporary, was to chase away the Al-Shabaab and later on retrieve. But even much more important, it should be appreciated the fact that the United Nations Security Council has already agreed on the rehearting of the Kenyan troops, so that they are now going to be under the AMISOM. This is the position. We have no intention at all to remain in Somalia. If we ever had had it in the last 20 years, we would have actually moved to Somalia.
All right.
Ours is to wish the Somalia people, by the way, to enjoy the security that we do have.
All right, let's get back to Xassan Sh Mahmoud in Mogadishu. What do you make of what you've just heard there? And I wonder, I want to get your thoughts also on whether you think more ordinary Somalis should have been involved in this conference.
Yeah, I really appreciate, I genuinely appreciate the position and the statement of the minister. Kenya has done a lot for Somalia and is still doing a lot for Somalia. It's not only the refugees, which is a very big part, but also the Somali business, the Somali students, the Somali, everybody. Kenya was the lifeline for Somalia, and we appreciate that, and that will be a historical position that the Somali people will never forget. But the question is, and I do agree that there was a serious security challenges that Shabab posed to Kenya in the past couple of months or years. But the question is, there was no Al-Shabaab in Somalia before 4 years. 3 to 4 years ago, there was no Shabaab and there was no Somali state. There was no piracy a couple of years ago, but there was no, even after 16, 15 years after the collapse of the state, there was no state in Somalia. Now, if we focus our attention to Shabaab and piracy, even if we get the good side of it and the Kenyan troops, forces and the Ugandan forces, the Ethiopian forces, and the support from the West, all they eliminate Shabaab today. That does not mean there is a state in Somalia who controls the country. So even something else which might be more difficult, more complex that Shabaab and piracy may come tomorrow. So the central issue is, can Somalia have a functioning state that controls all this? We know that Somali problem is not a Somali problem anymore. It's the problem of the region, it's the problem of the world. So, but the question is, how can we solve this problem? We cannot solve this problem as a piecemeal. Kenya sending troops to Somalia, Ethiopia sending troops to Somalia, AMISOM expanding. All that we hear from London conference is that expansion of the AMISOM troops, expansion, increasing the funding of AMISOM troops. Yes, this is good. It's a positive. It can help the solution, but it's not the solution. That's not that. These are means to the solution, but it's not the solution. The solution is a functioning Somali state. And to get that functioning state, we said loudly to the international community, to our neighbors, and let the Somali people be involved in the process of making. Few people, few selected individuals who has a track record that they do not represent, they do lack legitimacy, they do lack popular support from Somalia, cannot represent Somalia. And this is where the international community's point of view is getting out of focus. So what I'm going to say is that I do appreciate and I do agree with what the minister said, but the solution is not on that direction. Can we look some other direction? And can the London conference now focus back to the attention of the role of the Somalis in the process of state building in Somalia?
Minister Saitoti, do you want to come back and address those points?
Yes, sure. I would like to actually state this. Since 1991 or 1992, when these problems of Somalia started, and then there was no involvement at all on the part of the international community. That is the one that led to the involvement of lack of order, lack of the respect for the rule of law into Somalia, and that is also eventually that brought about Al-Shabaab, which we did not have before. The same thing generated into a situations where the piracy again was out there. Now, that was the time when the international community did not look into Somalia. But the point of the matter here is that I don't think that we can actually exclude any kind of an attempt at this particular time to explore the solution in which at least Somali situation can be stabilized, so that institutions of the state can function. I do not want to say that these particular conference is going to be a solution for once and for all, but at least should be seen as the beginning of trying to explore how the Somalia situation can be brought into a situation where at least the institution of state in Somalia can work, that there will be rule of law, that there will be opportunities for the Somali people, incidentally, to regain their sovereignty, to regain their own ordinary life, and so that the children of Somalia can study, and so that other social services can be provided to Somalia. The point of the matter is that the situation is extremely difficult, and Kenya would wish at least to see that our own neighboring country, our own brother in Somalia, are able to enjoy the life of stability that other countries in the region do enjoy.
David Anderson, Somalia's Prime Minister, said that his country is at a crossroads and needs a massive injection of money. Somalia is at a very critical juncture in its history. He said we're moving from an era of warlordism, terrorism, extremism and piracy into an era of peace, stability and normalcy. What good, I put to you, is a pledge of more money? If that's what comes out of this conference, won't it just disappear into the pockets of the corrupt, just as it's done in the past?
Wow. What a very good question. The history of Somalia in the last 20 years has been of a series of injections of outside resources to try and move people towards a negotiated solution. Essentially, that money has been eaten by the people who've been given it. And I'm afraid there's become a kind of donor dependency locked into the process of negotiation in Somalia. And I worry a little that the next stage of this London process will be trying to get people to come to the table in Somalia to discuss the architecture of what changes can be made, and that to do that, the West will have to put money on the table. Now, that's worrying enough, and the modalities of that need to be thrashed out. But what about the inequalities between the various parts of Somalia as it now exists? Somaliland, for example, is presumably going to be part of this reconstituted new Somalia. But do the Somalilanders want that? And what will it take to get them to compromise? They've fought very hard politically to create what they've created. Are they now to be expected to go back and sit round the table with heads of militias and warlords and people who they would consider to be not politically credible in the way that they are, and negotiate some kind of compromise?
Right.
That's a very big ask to make of Somaliland.
Yeah, let's put that point to Xassan Sheikh Mahmoud then. Could perhaps a model for peace and stability in the wider Somalia be Somaliland, which has achieved a remarkable level of stability and democracy since it broke away in 1991? I have to ask you to be brief, please, Xassan.
Yeah, I totally agree with my colleague that Somaliland has done a lot of good things, and they shaped their future and the stability there, and I appreciate and I'm proud of that as a Somali, that some Somalis can do what the world thinks that Somalis cannot do, that they govern their own. That's good. But the question is, and the other thing is that after 20 years of state collapse and conflict and all this, we do not expect a good Somalia tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. What we are talking is that can we face the right direction where the good Somalia will be attained at the end. Now, the question of today, I don't see any reason why we involve Somaliland at this initial stage. We need to, yes, I do agree with the professor who said that to whom Somaliland will negotiate with them. There was a union in 50 years ago, and that union has some problem with now, and we need to renegotiate the union and discuss about the matter. But the unity is very important. We cannot, we do not see any reason why we cannot be united when people of the, but my question is, let us put the fire on the south and the central regions off at the first, and then we will reach a stage where Somaliland and others can negotiate. This is the point where we have to focus on.
Gentlemen, I'm afraid that's where we have to leave it. Very frustrating, but we are out of time. Thank you all. In Mogadishu, Xassan Sheikh Mahmoud; in Oxford, David Anderson; and in London, George Saitoti. And as always, thank you very much indeed for joining us on this edition of Inside Story. Send us your feedback. Just email your thoughts to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Thanks for watching. In Doha, I'm Adrian Finnegan. I'll see you again. Bye for now.